Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Parent Connections workshop as we gear up for the 2020-2021 school year. As a reminder before we begin, this Thursday will be the final VB Safe Together information session hosted by Dr. Spence. Questions will be asked by parents, students, staff, and community members about the reopening of school for the 2020-2021 school year. Questions will be answered by VP CPS leadership, and we hope that you will join us at 6 o'clock p.m. on Thursday. As we begin this workshop, I would like to remind you of the structure. This session will cover 3 topics: a Schoology tutorial, understanding the 4x4 schedule for middle and high school students and families, and the last session is focused on answering a few questions that students had given us. My name is Dr. Admin Alexander, the Director of the Office of Family and Community Engagement. I am excited for our session today, as I hope this session continues to add clarity for parents and students as we begin the start of a new school year. Our first session will be a tutorial on Schoology, brought to you by Director of Instructional Technology, Dr. Sharon Shoebridge. Welcome and thank you for joining us, Dr. Shoebridge.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. So if it's all right, I'm just going to go ahead and get started, right, Dr. Alexander?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Well, it'd be helpful if I started at the beginning. All right, so my name is Sharon Shoebridge. I am the Director of Instructional Technology for Virginia Beach City Public Schools. And tonight I'm excited to have an opportunity to walk you through 3 of the applications that are going to be critical for your success with your students this school year. So the first one is, as you were waiting in the waiting room or for us to start, we had a calendar of events leading up to the start of the school year. Just some reminders to do with technology, like find the Chromebook and cord, make sure the device is charged, check that your student's password still works. And starting today, we went live this morning with ClassLink, which is our new launch pad for all instructional resources. And ClassLink is a single sign-on platform that is going to allow our students to safely and securely access all of the applications and resources that we have for them. In the past, you may have heard the term Clever. Students can access Clever. Well, ClassLink is the new portal for students to access their resources. And we, in the picture, if you notice, it looks the same on a computer, on an iPad, on a phone, whether it's an Android or an Apple phone. And the goal of this was that it would have a seamless look for students and for parents. So parents would be able to help their children find the resources that they were looking for. When your student logs into their Chromebook for the first time after today, they're going to go directly to this launch pad. So your student's device will look like this once they've logged in. And the benefit of this is that the Schoology application is right on the dashboard for the students. It's right here for the students to access. There's no more clicking to search for it. So they log in, they can click right on Schoology. It'll take them to their teacher's courses. We've also got set up for your students, very touchy computer, their textbook resources. So however they are enrolled in school, they will have a textbook folder that's specific to the courses that they have signed up for. So you won't have to search for the math analysis text resource or the grade 4 math book. It'll be in that textbook folder for the students. There's also reference databases as well as your G Suite information. All of that is going to be right there on the launch pad for your students. And if you notice down here at the bottom, see, this is what's going to happen next week when your teachers start, and I want you to have flexibility and grace and smile along with them when they make a mistake. Down at the bottom, there is a picture of a backpack, and when you click on the backpack, it takes you into the list of all the courses your student is signed up for. And off to the right, if you notice, all of these icons, those are all of the applications that are aligned to your student's course. So again, you don't have to go into another platform to find their resources. They're right there in their backpack on the front page of ClassLink. So we're very excited that that launched this morning. The other piece I wanted to remind you of is Parent Portal. If you have not yet signed up for a Parent View account, we strongly encourage you to go to vbschools.com. Under Parents, under the Parent tab, click on Parent Portal, and you can create or log into your Parent Portal account. The parent portal account, once you log in, will take you directly to your student or students if you have more than one. And the beauty right now is it's opening right on your child's class schedule, because we know that there's been a lot of questions about who's my child going to have next year, and if they're in secondary, what will their schedule look like? So it will open directly to your child's class schedule. And you can fluctuate between your students, toggle between your students to see their schedule. If you notice on the screen, down here in the corner, there is a button that says Schoology. And when you click on that, there are two options. There's parent support for Schoology, or there's the Schoology parent access. And that's where we're going to spend the bulk of our time this evening. So here is one way for you to be able to access your child's Schoology account. And Schoology is going to be an important resource for you as a division, K through 12. It is our learning management system. This is where all of our teachers will post their course information for their students, including assignments, reminders, updates. When you as a parent go in through your parent view, if you notice over here, it's got my name, but there's a drop down, and you can see my two daughters. I have two daughters going into Kellam High School. And if you know them, please don't tell them I'm using them for an example. They'll be horrified. But I'm going to use Ainsley for my example today. So when I click on Ainsley and her dashboard, I can see she's already got some upcoming assignments. Okay, so right here, this is an important, on the right side, there is a box of upcoming assignments. So as a parent, I can see that there's going to be things that she's going to need to do within that first week of school. There's also over here her current courses, as well as her current groups. And I'm going to start up here at the top, and I'm going to click on courses. Now, for the purposes of having a demonstration, these are obviously not her courses. She's not in elementary school. But I wanted you to see the difference in how we are asking teachers to set up their Schoology courses this year. So I'm going to start in elementary and give you an example of an elementary school homeroom. So all of your students in elementary are assigned a homeroom. And within that homeroom, there is going to be a folder called Welcome. And within that Welcome folder will be the important information to start the year. So in the absence of an open house, we have created a virtual open house inside every teacher's Schoology course in elementary in their homeroom folder called Welcome. So there's a welcome message from the teacher that will include information on where the video conference link for the first day of school will be, when the teacher is going to hold office hours, how you can reach the teacher if you have any questions. There's also going to be inside the folder a PowerPoint presentation from the teacher with just information about welcome to my class, information about your teacher, contact information. We wanted opportunities for teachers to be able to share with their students. I gotta figure out how to get out of here. There we go. Information about them. I'm going to go into an actual example of a math course. So right here's a third grade math example. And inside, what we've asked teachers to do is to make sure that they label the folders in such a way that parents will know when things are happening. So this first folder, Prime and Composite, will start on September 10th. And on September 17th, they will start working through the odd and even portion of that unit. We wanted to have some consistent formatting, some consistent labeling for parents, so that depending upon the student you're looking at, you'll be able to find things easier. I also, while I'm in here, want to take a moment to point out the left side navigation bar. On the left side, this is where there's materials. You can see the members of the course. This conferences button is another tool your students may use. If the teacher wants them to do a small group breakout, she might ask them to go to the Schoology conferences. I just wanted you to be aware this is where it lives on the dashboard. And then these are some of our resource books, and WeVideo is a tool we have this year that students can use to create videos on the things that they're learning. And very easy to use tool, very easy to use resource. I want to show you this high school course because, again, in high school there isn't a technical homeroom Each teacher is going to create a welcome folder or a course information folder. And again, if you notice, the navigation bar on the left has many of the same. We have kept that consistent K through 12. On the right side, again, you can see the calendar. So specifically for this English course, Ainsley has 2 assessments that are coming up. There's a preliminary assessment on rhetoric, and there's an academic vocabulary task. Inside the welcome folder, again, because we were trying to keep it as consistent as possible, there's the welcome PowerPoint from the teacher, as well as where the office hours will be and the times. And we're hoping that this will be helpful for all of our students as they are navigating within. I'm going to take a moment to talk to you the difference between courses and groups. So a course, those are all of the instructional components of your students' day, their math, language arts, social studies, maybe it's their theater, but they also might have groups. And their groups, so in my daughter's instance is, as a student at Kellam, she was in the drama club. All of the Kellam students have a group. There's a counseling group. And so your students might also then be part of an academic group, a club group, an enrichment group. This is where that information will be stored. And the benefit of that is teachers, the sponsors for those, can post tryout information, meeting information, when things are happening. And so again, for your students, it's in one location. Along the top navigation bar, there is a calendar. So you'll see when it populates, when I go to September, because it is the last day of August, you can see on this calendar that there are things that are due and when they are due. And if your child is in a group and the sponsor uses the calendar, those things from the sponsors group will also appear on your student's calendar. We are strongly encouraging teachers and club sponsors to use this calendar feature this year to help parents navigate where their students need to be within their courses. Over here on this bar, there's a section I want to take you to because I realized that this is something maybe our parents had not turned on before. So I'm going to click back on my daughter's name and you'll see down lower, you can see my 2 daughters. I can add a child, I can update my profile, or I can go to settings. When you go to settings, please verify your information, including your primary email address. Make sure that that is the information that you want the schools to have, and if there's any changes, you can make those changes. If you needed to change your password or you needed to update anything, you can do that under account settings. But an important part here is notifications. And as you see, I have them off, but I could receive a weekly or daily email report of my child's activity in Schoology. And as a parent, and I'm trying to make sure I am aware of what my student is doing, I can on a weekly basis receive on Sunday night or Friday night, maybe I'll do it at Friday night at 5, I can get a weekly report of what my child has been doing in Schoology. And I can also receive a report if my child has something past due. So if they have missed a due date on an assignment, I can get an email notification to give me an opportunity to go back into Schoology to see maybe my child just forgot to submit, because that happens a lot for our students. They get all the work done and they forget to hit submit. And it may just be as simple as reminding your child to hit submit, or it may be trying to understand why they have not been able to keep up with that work. And again, reaching out to the teacher. But I'm going to save those changes. And now on a weekly basis, or when my child has not submitted something, I can get an email notification to keep me on track with my student and my student's work. I'm going to go back into courses. I wanted to make sure I've covered everything that we had for you. Okay, the one last thing I'll show you here is underneath this course, there is a button that says Student Progress. This may or may not appear in every course. If it is there, it is a benefit. You can see how your student is working through each of the tasks that the teacher has assigned, but not every teacher uses the Student Progress button. It's just a benefit, and if it's there, you can see why and how your child could use it. And that is everything. Dr. Alexander, is there anything you think I didn't share within Schoology that parents might need to know?
No, I think it's great. I actually learned a lot more information about Schoology as well. So thank you, Dr. Schubert. I did have just a couple kind of follow-up questions for you. One is, in your opinion, with Schoology, I know a lot of parents are trying to access this, but why is it so important that parents know this information?
That's a great question. Especially in this environment as we're starting, this is going to be your, as a parent, this is my way of knowing exactly what's going on in the class. So in a face-to-face world, I could have gone to an open house. I would have met my child's teacher. The teacher would have talked to me about the syllabus, or this is what the course expectations are. This is what we're working on. And in the absence of that, the teachers, one, have to have a way to get that information out to parents. The parents also have to have one location where they can find all of that. And Schoology is going to be that resource. And as your student is getting assignments, as your student is interacting with their peers and in school, it's a great place for you to find what are they reading. I'm not sure about all of you, but when my kids come home from school, I have to say, you know, what was your best part of your day? And you can't say PE or lunch. So like we have to set parameters. So they have to talk about something that happened at school. Well, I can go into the English course and I can already know that they've been doing something about the American dream. And I can ask a specific question about the American dream and what my daughter's perception of that is, because I'm able to see what the teacher is putting out. I can talk to my child about the pit and the pendulum and, you know, ask what her thoughts were about that. It gives me something to talk to my student about that's a little more specific to what they're doing on a daily basis. And I also think being able to see the assignments your student has, how they're doing with keeping up with their assignments. If you notice that there are a lot of assignments all being done at the same time, that creates an opportunity for you to have a conversation with the child's teacher or the school counselor to say, help me understand why everything seems to be due at Thursday. You know, it's difficult for my child to have everything due on the same day. It's information. The best way you can support your student is if you have information to then work with the school, to work with your student, to keep them on track.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Schubert. And I love the notification pieces too. And you're right, everything is all information, but the notification, I think, will really help parents to, you know, stay on top of things, as we all use notifications in our daily lives of, I have when to drink water. That's my notification.
I have too. Every 2 hours I have a notification.
That's exactly right. So the last question I have is for you. Are there going to be other tutorials available that parents can access? And if so, where will they be located?
That's a great question too. And actually, I'm going to stop sharing this and give me just one moment, because I have just today, so this is hot off the press. We have been working with the Department of Technology, and we were able to, under the vbcpssupport.com website that David Din and his Department of Technology team have put together for parents to use to access. Again, that was vbcpssupport.com. Under support, there is a location for parents that are called instructional resource videos. And when you click on that and scroll down, we have a playlist of instructional resource videos for parents. We have videos on Schoology. There's one for parents. There's one on the difference between parent and student accounts, because there are some things that are not visible in the parent account that the student can see. We have a class link video. And so we will continue to add videos. There's a Seesaw video as we have instructional videos that we're creating for parents at home to help them do have a better understanding of how they can support their student. We will continue to add these to our instructional resource link off of the Department of Technology support page. So off of vbcpssupport.com, under support for parents, and you'll see the instructional resource videos. And like I said, we're going to continue to add to those every time we have a need from a parent that, for example, they don't know why they're using IXL, which is a math program, and how do I use IXL? we'll have an instructional resource video and we'll add it there so that parents have some place to go to find more information to support their student at home.
Dr. Schubert, that is amazing and awesome. So thank you. And on behalf of parents too, definitely thank you, because I know, as technology moves along very quickly, a lot of times parents can't keep up with it, and it's no fault of their own. It's just things change very quickly, and our students can keep up with it, but sometimes we can't. And I think that just having that information is so helpful to be able to stop and rewind and stop again and rewind to go back to make sure you really know what you're doing. So thank you so much to you and your team for producing those.
Certainly. Most of it is we appreciate the feedback. We got a lot of feedback in the spring about, is there a way that we can find these videos for support? Boy, if Schoology could look consistent across K-12. There was a lot of feedback we got in the spring, and we took all of that feedback, worked with our partners in the Department of Teaching and Learning, and really tried to streamline things for parents to make it easier for them to support their students at home. So we're hoping, we'll get more feedback as the fall semester begins, and we'll try to keep things as updated as we can as parents have a need.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Schubert.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thanks for being a part of the Parent Connection. So as we move along, and I know Dr. Schubert is going to join us later on to answer a few questions that students had, we're going to continue to move forward to our next topic, which is really how to the press as well, and understanding the 4x4 scheduling. In order to do that, Mr. Matt Delaney has joined us. Mr. Delaney is the Executive Director of Secondary Teaching and Learning, and he's going to talk to you about the new 4x4 schedule for middle and high schools. Mr. Delaney, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Alexander. Good evening, and thank you to Dr. Schubert for her informative presentation. As a parent of high school students, I don't think they'd appreciate a Friday night notification email on their Schoology report, but they would vote no on Fridays. But I appreciate being here this evening. Welcome to those of you that are here. It's been a very pleasurable experience for me to be a part of this Parent Connection over the last few weeks, as I've grown to see how informative it is to our parent groups and for our teachers that are really dealing with a time of uncertainty and really anxious about the start of the school year. As Dr. Alexander said, I'm here to talk a little bit about the 4x4 schedule for the middle school and high school students. As many of you may know, this is a change from what has been done over previous years, where we were typically on what is called an A-B block schedule. So the purpose of my time with you today is to just talk about why the move to a 4x4 schedule, give you more concrete information on what is the 4x4 schedule, how does it impact our day-to-day schedule, and then what are the keys to really being successful. As Dr. Schubert talked about, the schedules were made available today. I know my children at home were quick to check and see who their teachers were and what their classes are to start the year. And I'm sure your students and parents on the call this evening are probably wanting some answers to some questions. In each of our presentations so far this year, we've talked about the component of that there's the option 1 of face-to-face learning and the option 2 of virtual learning. Again, it's important to emphasize that those are things that we've never done before, as we also prepare for a face-to-face return at some point in time. So we are busy planning and trying to finalize plans of the option 1 and option 2 virtual learning space and continuing those plans. We also feel like it's important, especially in this presentation, to remind everyone the difference between the emergency learning plan and what we're looking at in the fall for 2020. One of the big components of the schedule is that we wanted to ensure that embedded in the schedules, in this bold print on the right side of the screen here, that remediation and acceleration opportunities were embedded in our scheduling. But I think the 3 most important things to recognize that are different in the fall than what was going on in the emergency learning plan is that there will be synchronous live instruction in which teachers are working directly with students. There will also be opportunities for asynchronous instruction, but the difference in this component is that there's an expectation that students are engaging with their teachers, engaging with their peers, and many times interacting with the content in a live format. Also in the fall of 2020, assignments will be graded, feedback will be provided, and attendance will be monitored and counted. So those are all 3 major changes from what students experience virtually in the spring. You factor all that in with the idea that this is the first time we've ever started a school year virtually. We also are in plans at some point to transition back to a level of face-to-face instruction while allowing some kids to stay virtual. And there's always the potential that we have to plan for that we could go back to virtual again. I say all of those things for parents and students to recognize that we're going to have a significant amount of flexibility and understanding for the work our teachers are doing, the time they're putting in to ensure that they're creating the best educational environment for our students, and the challenge that they're looking to overcome as we start the school year. So the question probably on many of your minds is, why are we going to a 4x4 schedule this year? And if you've listened to Dr. Spence throughout the summer or school board meetings or looked at the instructional learning plan for the year, you heard quite often that we were getting guidance from many of our health professionals. We were looking at health mitigation needs and really had to look at creating a schedule on the elementary, middle, and high school level that will maximize all health and safety protocols, will minimize the academic load for all students, knowing that we're starting virtually and the potential at some point at any time in the year we may have to return virtually after coming face-to-face, minimizing the number of courses that a student is responsible for. We wanted to minimize the transitions in a school building and maximize the use of cohorts. That's extremely challenging on the high school level and on the middle school level, where you have a variety of different classes and courses that require you to transition to teachers that are specifically certified in those courses. And it's difficult to cohort. So the use of the 4x4 schedule does provide some level of minimizing the number of interactions between students, where in the previous AB schedule, student may have 6 to 8 classes over a 2-day period. We'll talk a little bit more about the 4x4, but is essentially going anywhere from 3 to 4 classes every day with the same set of students. We also felt it was important to minimize the teacher to student ratio. In the 4x4 schedule, teachers aren't as responsible for as many kids per term as they are during the AB schedule. And we also want to highlight the need to focus continually on student and staff well-being. And we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. But that is the why for this year of going to the 4x4 schedule. When we took these components and this goal in place and met with secondary principals, the 4x4 schedule became the most logical landing spot. So what is the 4x4 block schedule? Essentially, the 4x4 block schedule is broken down into 2 academic terms. We call them term 1 and term 2. Within each term, there's 2 semesters in each term. So for the year, there will be a total of 4 semesters. In previous scheduling models, you were used to on a grading scale of 2 semesters. Now in the 4x4, you have 4 semesters. There are 4 marking periods each semester. So there will be a total of 8 marking periods for the year. Students will have the same 3 to 4 classes each day for a term, and then they will get 3 to 4 new classes when we start term 2. Essentially, students can complete 6 to 8 classes in a school year. This question has come up often. High school students can still obtain 8 credits by the end of the year, as they did previously on the standard AB block schedule. This may be confusing, so I want to share with you the school calendar, and this was approved by, the secondary calendar was approved by the school board at its last meeting. If you look at the top, the 2020-21 school year will begin on Tuesday, September 8th and conclude on June 18th. So here's where you can see the differences now in terms of how the scheduling applies on the 4x4. Term 1 begins September 8th and will end on January 29th. The first semester of term 1 will take place from September 8th to November 10th. Marking period 1 is September 8th to October 7th. I highlight in blue the October 7th because that is a different date than what we're accustomed to. Typically, the first marking period ends in November. It's important for everyone to mark on their calendar that the end of the first marking period is on October 7th. I want to also go back and note that your child will be meeting with the same teachers every day during the marking period 1. In previous schedules, they met with their teacher every other day. So again, they will be meeting with their teachers every day, starting on September 8th. Marking period 2 goes from October 8th to November 10th, and that will end the first semester of term 1 on November the 10th. Semester 2 will begin on November 12th and until January 29th. Marking period 3 will go from November 12th to December 16th. Marking period 4 from December 17th to January 29th. So on January 29th will end term 1. Your child would have completed a full course in that term, received a final grade for that course in term 1. For our students that are in credit-bearing courses, our high school students typically, but we do have some middle school students involved, they will receive their verified credit at the end or their credit for finalizing the course at the end of that term. So the potential exists for a high school student at the end of term 1 to have earned 3 to 4 credits at the end of term 1. Beginning on February 2nd, they will transition to term 2. Semester 1 will go from February 2nd to April 14th. Marking period 1 of term 2 will go from February 2nd to March 4th. Marking period 2 from March 8th to April 14th, and that will end semester 1 of term 2 on April 14th. Beginning on April 15th and running to the end of the year of June 18th, we'll begin semester 2 of term 2. Marking period 3 will go from April 15th through May 12th. That will conclude marking period 3, and marking period 4 will go from May 13th to June 18th. And at the end of June 18th, that will conclude term 2. Students will receive their final grades and have the potential to earn 3 to 4 credits on the high school level or in some middle school courses at the end of that term 2. So again, the key components are essentially during each term, students will have the ability to complete an entire year's course of the typical AB schedule that they were accustomed to in previous years, and complete that course in each term due to the fact that they will meet in that class daily with the same teacher. Want to take note of then also what does the high school virtual 4x4 schedule look like. And so when you look at starting the year on September the 8th, it's important for students and parents to understand how the schedule will operate on a day-to-day time schedule. As we talked about previously, Mondays will continue to be a day of professional learning and tutoring and office hours provided at the school level. I'll talk a little more about that in a moment. The times on the high school virtual only, beginning on September 8th, the first period class will begin at 8:30. Students should report to that class at that time. As Dr. Shoebridge shared in her presentation, information is coming out for students to understand how to log into that class, getting a welcoming email from their teacher and finding updates in their Schoology courses. Block 2 will begin at 9:55 and run until 11:10. Students will have a break, and in some cases, there will be an advisory session or an SEL support session scheduled at the school level from 11:15 to 12:15. Block 3 will begin at 12:15 and run until 1:30. Block 4 will begin at 1:40 and end at 2:55. It's important for you to note that those are 75-minute sessions, but we've talked to teachers about how to operate within that 75 minutes. It is not our expectation per se that students are completely locked into the screen for 75 minutes each block, as we recognize the amount of time that this entails during a particular school day. Noted at the end from 3:05 to 3:50, Tuesday through Friday, there's opportunities for teachers to be available for office hours, our students with disabilities and our English language learners to receive support, students to work on asynchronous work, potential for parent conferences to be held, and also wanted to ensure that our clubs and athletic teams could still meet even though we're in a virtual world during this time. So essentially after school activities on the high school virtual only schedule would go from 3:05 to 3:50. Again, I want to highlight, if you look back up on the schedule and you see block 1, block 1, block 1, block 1, those students will be in that same class every period, and we'll go into more detail with that in a few moments. It's important to note that when we return on the high school level to face-to-face scheduling, when we start to return students into the building to receive instruction, that the scheduling times will change. And the reasons for this change is for a couple of reasons. One, it has to match our transportation needs. In order for us to be able to transport students back to schools on the high school, middle school, and elementary school level, high school students will have to return to their start time of 7:20 in the morning. This is no different than what they've had in previous years. We felt like with the virtual beginning of the school year that we could provide some grace to students and start a little bit later in the virtual world. But when we go back to face-to-face, all students on the high school level, face-to-face and virtual, will begin their day at 7:20. I talked about the transportation pieces, but we also need to consider other components, such as how in some instances we share school staff across buildings and across classrooms. Those times must be aligned, not only in the face-to-face world, in the virtual world. And we also must have them aligned to our centers, such as our Advanced Technology Center, our Career and Technical Education Center, and our Environmental Studies Program Center. They also must be aligned to meet the transportation needs and the course needs of our students. So there'll be a shift during those times of 7:20 to 8:50. If you paid attention to the instructional plan and other school board meetings, face-to-face instruction is going to be determined by a variety of factors to include health metrics, such as the metrics of being in yellow and yellow. But there's other considerations that are being utilized as well prior to that return. I want to highlight as well that you see 90 minutes for block 1. We wanted to ensure that this allows for students to have breakfast during that time of entry to the school, and also to ensure that we have safe transitions from our school bus parking lots and from our student parking lots, that students enter the building safely and maintain the health mitigation procedures that exist in that area. So again, to be extremely clear here, we have two separate components, but on September the 8th, students will begin courses at 8:30 on the high school level. It's not as complicated on the middle school level from a scheduling standpoint. Virtual 4x4 schedule. Some students may have a zero bell, and that should show on your schedule. I'm certain when you receive communications from your home school, they will explain the zero bell concept and how it applies at each school. There's a component of checking in at 10 o'clock to 10:25 for SEL advisory. Again, our schools will send out communications on expectations and means for students to log into those sessions. And then the block 1 on the middle school level will begin at 10:30 and go until 11:45. So students will be expected to log in at 10:30 for their block 1 courses. They will begin block 2 at 12. They will receive a 50-minute break for lunch at 1:20 and return for block 3 at 2:15 to 3:30. So when you look at your student schedule on the middle school level, you will see it identified as a block 1, block 2, and block 3. The 4th block component of the middle school schedule is what you see at the bottom there, which is a 45-minute daily literacy, numeracy, support, and enrichment block. I take you back to what was shared at the beginning of the presentation, that we wanted to ensure that we provided opportunities for students to identify gaps that may have existed from lost time in the spring, or opportunities for students to receive enrichment as they need. The focus in many cases will be on reading and mathematics, and that time will be geared towards the needs of the individual building and the students that are served in those buildings. Just want to clarify a little bit of the expectations for students on Mondays. As we shared before, teachers will be engaged in professional learning. They're going to have opportunities to plan for the upcoming weeks. They're going to have the opportunities to grade, but they may also take advantage of this time to work with students individually in order to address gaps or provide the enrichment I spoke about before. They will have an opportunity to schedule teacher conferences, participate in school tutoring sessions, and if school counselors want to hold conferences with students and families, they can do so at that time as well. It's an opportune time for students to complete tasks as assigned by the teachers, but I want to be perfectly clear that the teachers in the school building are going to direct and control the expectations of what students are being asked to do on those Mondays. As I spoke about earlier today, and Dr. Shoebridge showed this on her screen as well, schedules went out to students today via Parent Portal. My hope is that you've had the opportunity to access that. If not, you can go to VB Schools and you click on the Parent tab, and you go to Parent Portal and you log in to your Parent Portal app as Dr. Shoebridge showed in her presentation. She showed you a screenshot of what a schedule would look like. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what you might see when you pick up a sample high school student schedule. So I'm providing you a sample high school student schedule. We're looking at a student who might be in the 9th grade. And as you look at that schedule, it says on Parent View, student schedule for term 1. It'll have on the left period 1, period 2, period 3, period 4. That talks about what I addressed in previous slides of what they're going to take on that first class. It then gives you the course title, the room name, and the teacher name. So in this instance, the student will report to Art Foundations during first period of term 1 every day. Student will report during period 2 to World Geography every day. And then in period 3, they will report to Algebra every day. And for period 4, they will report to their Environmental Science course every day. What I mean again by every day is every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They will log into that class and interact with their teachers, interact with their peers, and importantly, interact with the content that they've registered for in those course titles. Some of you may see a schedule that has something that says academic support located in a course title. So using a similar sample schedule, student has Art Foundations first period, World Geography second block, second period, Algebra third period, and Academic Support fourth period. The Academic Support period is an opportunity for a student to maintain, to receive tutoring, to get enrichment, to potentially complete additional assignments, to connect with a teacher in that class, to answer questions. So if you see that Academic Support block on there, a student should be reporting that class to complete the assigned work that has been provided in other classes. On the middle school level, it may look a variety of ways on Parent View. There's 2 I'm going to provide for you here. This is an example of a grade 6 potential course for a student. So in period 1, the student would attend course social studies in the room number provided and with the teacher listed on the schedule. For period 2, they would attend orchestra 6, room number, teacher provided, and in period 3, they would attend pre-algebra, again with the room number and the teacher that's listed. Not to sound like a broken record, but they'll attend these classes every day, Tuesday through Friday, blocks 1, 2, and 3 at the designated times that were provided earlier in the slide presentation. In some instances, I've seen schools that have added something to their 4th class that talks about core social studies, orchestra 6, pre-algebra, and they may have listed a study hall for the year. This is another form of an academic support block. If you look at the previous slide where only 3 classes were listed, I want to go back to what we shared earlier, that there's going to be a literacy, numeracy, enrichment block provided for those students as well. So if you only see 3 courses listed on your schedule in Parent View at your middle school, recognize that they will be provided with communications around how they are to log into the literacy, numeracy support block, what that will look like from a Zoom, Google Meet standpoint, and additional communications to access that level of support and enrichment. I provided you with 3 samples of schedules, but I think it's important that many of you, if you have not already, will be receiving in upcoming days communications from your middle school administration around how to interpret the schedule, how to address any concerns around the schedule. So it's important that you review that communication, view videos that might be provided by those schools, as they will provide additional school-based clarification on the scheduling that they are provided. There are a few other elements that I want to make sure that we identify of considerations or questions that come up in the 4x4 schedule. A question that comes up often is around SOL assessments, and whether or not a student, if they're taking an SOL course in term 1, when will they take that SOL assessment? Typically, In the AB block schedule, our students are accustomed to taking their end of the year SOL assessments in May and June. It is a little bit different or significantly different in the 4x4 schedule. So students that are eligible for SOL tests will take the corresponding SOL at the end of each term. So the example that I'll provide for you is, if you recall the high school schedule that I shared in term 1, a student was enrolled in algebra and world geography in term 1. Algebra and world geography are both SOL courses. So that student would take the corresponding SOL for algebra and world geography at the end of term 1 in January. I also want to remind everyone to recall that students are taking a full year's worth of coursework in term 1, which is similar to how they're assessed previously, where they take an assessment at the end of a full year's coursework on the AB schedule. So again, students will take, in those courses that are eligible for SOL tests, will take the corresponding SOL at the end of each term. There's also several questions and concerns around advanced placement courses in the 4x4 format. Traditionally, students would take those, the AP exams in May. They still will do that. But the impact is concerns around, if my child is taking an AP course in term 1, how will they be prepared for an AP exam that will occur in May and they're no longer in the class? Also, the question that comes up is, will there be enough time for a student in term 2 to be prepared for the AP assessment in May? We have several supports and resources that are in place for students and teachers. Teachers are working diligently as we speak. They're collaborating with fellow teachers across the school division to make sure the pacing is aligned to the needs of the students in the class, looking at how they're going to provide tutoring opportunities on Mondays and other opportunities throughout the week, scheduling boot camps for students to participate in. At several schools this summer had boot camps as an introductory component for students to start the year. There's going to be advanced placement workshops. There's several resources that the College Board is providing, to assist students to get prepared. We understand that the stress and strain that this puts on students as they're walking into uncharted waters of a 4x4 schedule. And we are confident that we're going to work diligently to put those supports in place to ensure that they're ready. Several school divisions across the state utilize a 4x4. We've collaborated with those states as well, with those schools, those divisions, to recognize best practices, and we feel like we have a plan in place to support students moving forward. It's important to understand that teachers and schools will develop those supports and will be able to work with students to provide the level of clarity so they see that the possibilities exist for them to be prepared. The other question that comes up is around eligibility in VHSL-sponsored athletics and activities. Students in a 4x4 schedule must take a minimum of 3 classes each term and pass those 3 classes to be eligible to participate in school-sponsored athletics and activities. So all of these things are certainly changes to what our students and parents and teachers are accustomed to. It is going to require some patience and flexibility as we work through those adjustments. And we're confident that if we work together and we look at our best practices and solutions, that we'll achieve great results on SOL assessments, and we'll do just as well on our advanced placement exams. As we look at how are we going to be successful as we start the school year in a 4x4 schedule, Dr. Shoebridge talked about this a little bit. We have to be ready on the first day of school on September 8th. She shared the component of Chromebooks need to be charged, they need to be ready. We need our students to locate the course information folder in each Schoology course for the video conferencing link, whether it's Google Meet or Zoom that a teacher is going to use. We want our students to find the best possible workspace they have in their house to support being engaged in the learning. We need them to be on time to each class. And also, we would like all of you to continue to review the communication from your teachers and schools that is going to come out during the upcoming week. I've seen many of those communications from many of our schools. They're very detailed and very structured to the needs for students to be successful on the first day. So I hope that you continue to review those, you reference back to those, you sit down with your student and go over those expectations and that are being offered up not only by the school, but the school division. As we start the school year, it's going to be extremely important that we engage with our peers and our teachers, that we begin to connect not only as students to the teachers, but just connect as a community and begin to develop those relationships. To me, this is the most important component of the initial week of school. If we have students that are logging in and meeting with our teachers and engaging with their peers, we're going to have students that are going to succeed in the long run. And it's really important that we stress this, that they arrive on time, they're excited about interacting with their fellow classmates and beginning the relationship building with their teachers. Dr. Shoebridge talked about this as well. Organization is going to be of the utmost importance. Students are going to need to utilize a calendar to identify key timelines and dates. Dr. Shoebridge mentioned the Schoology calendar. I know some schools have created their own planners for students to use, but it's going to be extremely important for students to utilize a calendar to identify key timelines as dates. I go back to the end of the first marking period is October 7th, and we need students on September 8th organized and ready to go. Need to utilize Student View and Parent View to monitor grades and assignments, as Dr. Shoebridge talked about those notifications. And I really want to stress that students are encouraged to participate in the advisory sessions. It's a great opportunity to interact with our school counselors. It's a great opportunity for them to engage in social emotional learning, to get some of the conversations off of just their coursework, and to have an opportunity to discuss many of the issues that are affecting them today. And it's going to be important that we provide them that grace and opportunity to engage in those sessions. And so when you see those advisory sessions advertised by your schools with the times that those are going to occur and those topics, highly encouraged for students and parents to participate or have their children participate in those advisory sessions. One of the things that is going to be, in my opinion, most essential is how are we consistently communicating? We want to make sure that your contact information and Synergy is accurate. It provides the opportunity for teachers to send out very detailed emails to people that are in need of receiving those emails. It's important that we understand that the communication concerns and questions go to the teacher and the school counselor and the school administration. It's also important that you understand that the teachers are balancing several different students as well, and that you are mindful of the time in which they do reply to that communication. On the secondary level, we advocate for students to become their biggest advocates, that they initiate the communication. I'm extremely confident that teachers will have communication protocols in place for students. It'll be through Schoology updates, alerts, emails, and a variety of other fashions. It's important that students own their learning and own their communication and advocacy with teachers, and that parents support them through that process. It's a huge, huge component of the secondary level. And I know there's some anxiety for our rising 6th graders and rising 9th graders on their ability to navigate that. It's important that we support them through that process. Dr. Shoebridge showed some videos previously to take full advantage of the supports available. I talked about a couple of tutoring, office hours, and school counselors. As parents, there's support videos that'll be present on our vbcpssupport.com website, which I've also listed on this slide. And one that I don't want to go unnoticed, and I would put this on a sticky note on every one of your children's Chromebooks. I'd have it on the refrigerator, that there is a technology support hotline that anybody can call to get technology support. 263-1111 is the number. They just adjusted their hours starting today for Monday through Thursday, 7:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. and Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. So as a parent that is at work, if your child is at home and they have some issues with technology, they can call this number and receive the necessary supports that can hopefully get them back online and engage in their instruction in a very timely manner. So again, I want to highlight that number, highlight the fact to put that on a sticky note, and ensure that your students are understanding that they can call those not only prior to school, but also at times after school hours. I use this last slide before I turn it back over to Dr. Alexander to really look at our VBCPS core values. And those core values are on our website. Anytime you log in, you see these. And it's been interesting to at times continually review back to these core values and really look at how much our value system has been put to the test since March the 13th. And as we look at the need to put students first and how do we seek growth, and everybody knows we've had to be very open to change and how challenging that can be in the times we are in today, and that we want to do great work together and value differences. The 4x4 schedule, as we've set it up, has put students first. It's minimizing their course load. It's allowing them to focus on a set level of assignments of 3 to 4 classes. It's creating them in a scenario when we return back to face-to-face that we're minimizing the level of contact and number of students they have in the class. But what I will share with you is it's extremely challenging for our teachers to prepare for as they start the school year. And when I look at that bulleted item of do great work together, I think it's important for the parents and students on the call to recognize the level of support that our teachers need from them, and the level of understanding that our teachers need from our entire community in terms of what we're asking them to do and what we're asking them to prepare for. Most teachers will tell you, and as a former teacher and a current educator, our favorite days are the first day of school when we get to see them come off the bus. We get to form new relationships with a brand new group of students. And for me as a high school principal, my favorite day was graduation, to watch those same students exit across the stage with the same smile on their face. The only difference was we knew them a lot better at that time. Our teachers are not getting that opportunity to have that first day that they're accustomed to. They're going to work very hard to develop those relationships, and they're going to need all of our support to ensure that that occurs. Please have your students show up on the first day, logged in, ready to go. I ask for our parents to show extreme patience, flexibility, and grace towards our teachers who are walking into uncharted waters, and they're doing it at a pace that's never been seen before. I'm very proud of their efforts, and I'm thankful that we have such a strong staff. And I just ask all of you to support them as they go through these upcoming weeks. Dr. Alexander, I can turn it over to you. I appreciate the time. I don't know if you have some questions for me as well.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Delaney. I think that was wonderful, and the last part you said is so true. So thank you for saying that and expressing that to all our viewers and our teachers and parents and families. Just really one question I had for you. With all the information and that you've given, if I'm a student or a parent on day one or today, and I got my schedule and I'm still a little confused, who should I contact to try to help me walk me through that information?
Yeah, as I stated in the presentation, schools are sending out communications, if they have not already done so or in the process of doing that, to really walk through how to interpret that schedule and how to deal with what are any perceived errors on that. I highly recommend that parents wait for that notification and review that documentation before the next step would then be to contact their school counselor or to contact their schools. The reason I say to wait on that communications is schools right now are busily planning for the opening of the school year, are finalizing some things internally, so they may not be able to respond as quickly as a parent needs, and they may be able to get that information and get that question answered by reviewing the communications that have come from the school. So that would be my first line of thinking for them, because again, as a former high school principal, within that communication, I always detailed for my families what the steps were if they were confused on anything in that schedule or if something did not look right. For example, I know from my own situation, I have 2 students in high school. I received a communication on Friday from their school about their schedules and what were the steps to take place if there were any concerns.
Awesome, thank you. So we're going to continue to move on. Mr. Delaney, thank you so much for that information on the 4x4. It was very thorough. I really appreciate the diagram. I think it added some visuals that are really helpful, so parents can actually see the differences between the two, one, the prior schedule and current, but also what term, what the semesters entail, and also the term. So thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. I want you to stay with us though, Mr. Delaney. Don't go anywhere. So we're going to get to our final part and really student questions. This past week, we sent out a submission form to collect some questions from students. We got a few questions back by students, and we compiled them and got a few questions back. And now we're going to have Dr. Shoebridge and Mr. Delaney answer a couple of these questions. Most of them are going to be for Dr. Shoebridge because they really center around technology, because, you know, that's everybody's concern is what happens if. So Dr. Shoebridge, thank you for joining us again. And I'm going to jump to some of the questions. The first question, which I think is a great question, came from a fourth grader who was a third grader. And they wanted to know, am I going to have a new meeting ID or personal link name in Zoom because I forgot mine? And having a person who has consistently forgets their passwords, I totally appreciate this question. So Dr. Shoebridge.
Certainly. So when we were talking about your Schoology access and the welcome message or the course information message folder in your Schoology course, your teacher is going to be creating the new link for you, and you will be set up in that. So students don't have to remember what they had last year or what they were last year. We've also talked with teachers about the very first time students log in to help students practice changing their name. If for example, Mr. Delaney went by something other than Matt, if he went by his middle name, Jim, maybe he wanted to put Jim on the, where your name appears instead of it saying Matt Delaney. We want teachers to have that opportunity to show students that. So kids do not need to remember what they used last year to log in. Those links won't be the same anyway, so you get to start fresh when you start on September 8th.
Awesome, thank you. That's comforting. I'm sure that little one was like, thank goodness.
Yes.
I don't have to go back through all the notebooks and figure out what my password was, all the Post-it notes.
Right.
The next question is, again, Dr. Shoebridge, for you as well. In fact, I'm going to say most of these are for you. What if I do not have a Chromebook? What do I do?
So that's a great question. So we have a lot of students who are new to Virginia Beach City Public Schools, whether they're a kindergartner or you've transferred in from some other place. You just need to contact your school, contact your home school, let them know that you're a new student and you need a Chromebook. They'll work it out with their technology support technician and get one assigned to you. If you are a student in Virginia Beach City Public Schools and last year maybe you did not go home with a Chromebook in March, you can still let your school know and say, hey, in March I didn't get a device to take home. Please, can you support me in getting one secured for me? We have a system where we can track where if a student was given a device, to make sure they've turned that back in to then reassign them a new device. In some of our Title I schools, the devices all had to be turned in, and so students moving into a new building are going to request a computer, and those schools are ready for those requests, but your best place to start is at your home school and let them know that you need a device.
Awesome. And the next question we receive is kind of like the first question regarding resetting a password. So students are in, but now, you know, they forgot their password as the year continues. How do they go about resetting their password as well?
So on that web, the VBCPS support website, there are some directions for how you can reset your password yourself. And so students and staff can reset their passwords. It's 2 easy steps. There's a way you can set up an account called self-service password reset. And you have to set it up prior to your password expiring, because that's the catch. And then you can reset your password. If by chance your password has already expired, you can contact the school, your home school first, let them know that you need support in changing their password. There are many staff members in your home school who can help you with the password reset. And if you're still struggling, if there's something else, maybe there's a different technical issue that's associated with your password reset, you can call the helpline that Mr. Delaney referenced in his presentation, the 263-1111. But we are always encouraging people to start with their home school first for any of their technology questions or their support questions, because quite often the answer can come from the school support. And then the technology is sort of the bigger picture things that the schools can't handle.
So, thank you again, Dr. Shoebridge.
Certainly, happy to be here.
2 more questions. 1 more question for you, and then I am going to have one for Mr. Delaney, I promise.
Okay.
Are students allowed to work on their own computers? Maybe they have a larger screen, they're more comfortable, instead of their Chromebooks when working at home.
So that's a great question. And I know that, like at my house, I have a double monitor, so it makes it nice for me when I'm doing work to be able to have the dual screen. And so my answer is going to be a little roundabout, but I'm going to say this. We recognize that your device at home may provide a larger screen. It might be easier to access resources. Maybe it's faster than the Chromebook. You figured out all summer how to save things to different locations. What we're going to say, though, is this. With several of our new applications like ClassLink, Securely Classroom, which is a way for a teacher to be in direct communication with the student while in the middle of instruction, the school-issued Chromebook is going to be essential. Okay, so that's for live instruction. So right now we're in live instruction. During this time, we would really like students to be on their school-issued device. It allows those applications to work. The ClassLink Launchpad will be available with all of the resources accessible for the student. When a student chooses to do their on-demand or they're doing work that's outside of the live time with the teacher, if the student wants to use their home device or whatever they have at their parents' house, we encourage you to use whatever you're most comfortable with. We will suggest that you create a bookmark for the ClassLink Launchpad so that you can get to your resources more easily and you're not having to hunt and peck on your computer for those pieces. So we prefer it when it's live instruction for the applications that we have in our school division to work on the Chromebook, and then for times that you're doing on-demand work or work independently, you can use your home device.
Thank you, Dr. Schubert. And the last question I have for both of you, but I'm going to throw it to Mr. Delaney first so you can take a drink of water, Dr. Schubert, and rest your vocals, is really just advice. As both of you are educators and have worked extremely hard this summer to put in support systems for parents and teachers and staff and et cetera, what advice would you give the students and parents to just starting this new school year? Mr. Delaney, I'm going to throw that to you first.
Yeah, I think, Dr. Alexander, when things get challenging, it's sometimes best to just go to what is simple to understand and what works. And, my hope is that we get all of our kids logged in on September the 8th, and they're looking at their teacher and their teacher's looking at them, and they're smiling at one another and starting to build that relationship. And if we're able to do that, the teacher's talent level will take over from there. And the teacher will make the decisions in the best interest of that student, and teaching and learning will occur. No doubt in my mind. So it just becomes, once there's a lot of noise of stuff out there, right? What is this going to be? There's thousands of questions. Well, to me, the one answer to any question in education is if you form a relationship with a student and a teacher, everything else goes to the wayside and that student reaches their potential. And so to me, all of these questions, all these concerns, the reality is let's get them in front of their teacher, let's let them form a relationship, and let's start taking care of one another. And then I think we'll be very proud in the end of that. If we let all the other noise kind of complicate it, it's going to hold us down a little bit. Let's log in on the 8th. Let's hope Zoom and Google Meet are working. Let's look at each other. Let's smile and say, pleasure to meet you. Let's work together. And that sounds probably pretty corny, but to me, that's as simplistic as it gets. Just let's start seeing each other and start working together.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. Dr. Schubert?
I was going to say, can you please repeat the question?
Yes.
Kidding. A lot of the things that Mr. Delaney just shared, I echo. So I had been an elementary school principal, and, on the first day of school, what mattered to me the most was that our kids got to school safely, that we fed them, and they got home. And in some ways, we don't have that same opportunity to make sure they get to us safely, or that we feed them, or that we get them home. But we can just make sure they can log on. We can have a friendly face. We can have a conversation. We can make sure they know where they're going the next day. I know there's a pressure for us to succeed and do well, but I think every day we are going to get better. I shared with somebody today, I just want us to start. I just want us to hit the ground and start moving, because I think some of the holdup is just fear, is just, this is unknown and different for me. And once we get into it, kids fall into their rhythm, kids relax, parents will take a deep breath, they will relax. I think that relationship piece is critical. Communicate. Talk to the teacher if you have questions. Make sure you know how to reach the teacher or the school office. Make sure that you are asking questions and you're following up. Don't let it become October 6th and you suddenly realize your child hasn't done any work or hasn't turned in any assignments. So just being a part of that, and let us just get started. Let us get started and get the work flowing. And I think it's going to be a fantastic, there are some amazing teachers out there already doing some great stuff to get ready. We're just going to check in September 8th, log on, say hi, build relationships, and it'll go from there.
Thank you. Thank you both for just taking the time today to be a part of this and inform our community and our students and parents on, you know, the Schoology tutorial as well as the 4x4. And just to cap it off on what both of you are saying, I think as well, just having a little bit of patience. I think this time is just all about being patient and trusting in your teachers because they know what they're doing and they do a great job every day. And so I'm with you both, and this is going to be a fantastic year. We're going to look back on this and be like, what were we worried about? It was nothing. So I'm excited for this school year, and thank you both again because I know a lot of people don't know, but I know how hard both of you work and your teams have worked to really get us to this point. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for this opportunity tonight.
Absolutely. So that was our final question. And again, thank you to Mr. Delaney and Dr. Shoebridge for joining us today for this Parent Connection series. I want to thank the students who submitted questions and the VBCPS community, as well, obviously, as our panelists. We hope this workshop answered many of your questions and provided a little bit more clarity for you as you start the beginning of the school year. And always, thank you for watching as well. Remember that to view our FAQs on bbschools.com, and this Parent Connection will be recorded, so please also review this this session on bbschools.com as well. Just another reminder that join us on Thursday for the last and the final of the 5-part series, VB Safe Together, hosted by our superintendent, Dr. Spence, answering final questions from parents, students, staff, and community members about the reopening of schools. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and have a great night.